Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. I'm Chris Perugine, joined today by Tim Diacono. All right, Tim.
Good morning.
Good morning. This episode is brought to you by the Six-Pack Revolution. We're giving away €300 worth of prizes, including the access to the July wave of the Six-Pack Revolution, which, in case you don't know, is a great program to help you lose weight and get your desired six-pack with nutrition and exercise and a lot of other resources. So let's start with the headlines, and then we'll start discussing the stories. Yesterday was a very, very heavy news day. A lot happened. So first of all, Konrad Mizzi has been forced out of the Labour parliamentary group. We'll talk about that a bit and about how he's still holding on to his seat in Parliament. The new police commissioner, Angelo Gaffa, took some decisive action when it comes to the Economic Crimes Unit. A magisterial inquiry has been launched into the PN bribery allegations. A woman was left on the floor having passed out outside the Halfar Open Centre yesterday after a bit of an incident involving a freezer, and billboards must be turned off at night according to new regulations that have been launched for public consultation. So let's start with the first story. After 4 years, I guess, of people demanding Konrad Mizzi's resignation, the former tourism minister has finally been forced out. What happened yesterday, Tim?
Yes, Chris. So Konrad Mizzi has been forced out, as you rightly said, from the Labour Party's parliamentary group. A vote was taken at the Labour Party last night, and it was extremely decisive. 71 out of 73 MPs and executive members voted for Konrad Mizzi to resign, which means that although he's still an MP, he is no longer part of the Labour Party. And this comes in the wake of the Montenegro wind farm scandal, which basically found out that 2 weeks before Malta had purchased a wind farm in Montenegro, this same wind farm had been purchased at a much lower price by an Azeri businessman who's also involved in electrogas, and he had loaned the money from Jorgen Fenech, who's now the murder suspect in the case of Daphne Caruana Galizia. Konrad Mizzi is claiming absolute innocence in all of this, but it seems very clear that people don't believe him, not even his own party. Let's not forget that this is, Konrad Mizzi has been, at the subject of controversies involving his Panama company and 17 Black for quite a few years. The same people who have been defending him and standing up for him rigorously over the years have now, humiliated him entirely by voting him out of his own party. This came after, obviously, he challenged the Prime Minister publicly.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. I think he made a strategic mistake yesterday, Konrad Mizzi, when he was asked by the Prime Minister to step down, and instead he took to his Facebook page, the Facebook page that us taxpayers have paid for. He took his Facebook page to say, I don't think I should resign, and so I'll just be supporting the government from my MP seat. I think that sort of forced Robert Abela's hands to take even more decisive action and to rally his whole party behind him. And in fact, they did rally behind him. As you said, out of 73 people, only one person voted in favor of Konrad Mizzi. Another person abstained. Interesting to note, Joseph Muscat was not at this parliamentary group meeting yesterday. And in fact, the opposition leader, Adrian Delia, followed up immediately by saying that now it's Joseph Muscat's turn to go. Ultimately, Joseph Muscat, even if he didn't have direct involvement in the corruption or the murder or other issues, he was politically responsible for now, a number of people who have been kicked out of the Labour Party. Also, I think it's important to state this has been a very, very hectic 48 hours with a lot of revelations coming out in court, and one of them did involve Joseph Muscat. So we had Keith Schembri saying for the first time under oath that Joseph Muscat told him to make sure Jorgen Fenech doesn't escape on that night where Jorgen Fenech did try to escape. Joseph Muscat has now confirmed that he did tell Schembri to make sure Jorgen Fenech doesn't leave. And now this, I think brings up a number of questions. How did Joseph Muscat and Keith Kemble even know that there were these fears of Jürgen Fenech escaping? Why did they get involved at any rate? Why did they need him to stay there if the police raid or the arrest was going to happen anyway? What interest did they have to tell him to stay in Malta? And why didn't he stay in Malta? Because we know that Jürgen Fenech was arrested on the sea as he was leaving Malta in his yacht.
And why did Keith Kemble change his version of events? So let's not forget that back in December, Keith Kemble was testifying about this very same phone call with Jürgen Fenech, but back then he said that Jürgen Fenech had messaged him to say that he's leaving Malta, and then Keith Kemble tried, according to him, to convince him not to. But he hadn't brought up Joseph Muscat back then, and now he has. So the versions of events have changed quite drastically.
And all eyes are on Joseph Muscat.
And now all eyes are on Joseph Muscat. So, I suppose he was the one person in the country who was more powerful than Keith Kemble. And yes, now it's Joseph Muscat's turn to answer some of these questions as well.
And moving on to the second story, another very interesting thing happened yesterday. The police commissioner, Angelo Gaffa, has been officially confirmed as police commissioner, and he did three things which I think really stand out and which kind of hopefully set the tone for what he's going to be doing moving forward. So first of all, he held a press conference, a competent press conference, which is a nice, refreshing thing considering what the previous police commissioner used to do. The second thing is he announced that Ian Abdullah, an inspector who used to head the economic crimes unit, very controversially in the sense that there were a lot of crimes that weren't really solved in this unit, he's been asked to step down. He's stepped down, and he's been replaced by Alexandra Mamo, who was the favorite, who was the runner-up to Angelo Gaffa in this contest of becoming a police commissioner. So I think it was good for Gaffa to reach out the hand of friendship to Alexandra Mamo, who is seen as a very competent police officer as well, and now we'll see what she does with the economic crimes unit. What do you make of this, Tim?
Yeah, so obviously Ian Abdullah, his time at the economic crimes unit has been marred by a failure to prosecute high-level corruption, a failure to even speak about these investigations whatsoever. As we know, there were several magisterial inquiries that have yet to see the light of day, FIU reports that have never gone to court, and the fact there's always been this narrative, right, from the authorities that the economic crimes unit are doing a great job, Ian Abdullah is doing a great job, he's being unfairly criticized. But the fact that the very first decision made by this new police commissioner was to remove him from that extremely crucial unit, I think it does say a lot. And even placing Alexandra Mamo there was quite a sign of intent from his part. Obviously there's Manival's review coming up, and the economic crimes unit was the main focus of criticism, right? So like the structures, they said the structures are all good, but the economic crimes unit in the police force is not doing its job enough. So at least there does seem to be a will to try and solve that.
Interestingly, Gaffa did not really say what Ian Abdullah will be doing in the future, so we don't yet know whether he still retains a role in the police force. And I think on the point of arrests, it must be said, that up to a few months ago, it would have seemed very unrealistic and unlikely for people like, Joseph Muscat, Keith Kemble, Chris Cardone, and Konrad Mizzi to step down. Today, they've all had to step down from various roles. And you talk about arrests and prosecutions in terms of the economic crimes. I think now it's clear, the writing's on the wall. Things are going to probably start happening from a criminal perspective now as well. And talking about criminal investigations, yet another criminal investigation has been launched, this time into the Nationalist Party. So a magisterial inquiry has been launched into allegations that the Nationalist Party was bribed to influence the election outcome at the MEP election last year, was it?
Last year, yes. So there have been serious allegations raised by 4 people now that the Nationalist Party, if not Adrian Delia himself, was offered or maybe even accepted a bribe from Jorgen Fenech to damage the re-election campaign of David Casa. And this because, according to Melvin Thoma, David Casa was hounding Jorgen Fenech on 17 Black in the European Parliament. As we know, he did, take some decisive action to even end up, that resulted in his accounts, our 17 Black's accounts being frozen. And, the allegation is that he went to the Nationalist Party, to Adrian Delia himself, offered or even paid him a large sum of money to derail his campaign. Now, Adrian Delia is obviously denying this. He's saying that basically Jorgen Fenech is a liar. He's saying that Keith Kembry, who then repeated this allegation in court later, is a liar as well. Basically, everyone's lying except for him. And at the moment, there is no concrete proof of this, but now there's going to be an investigation. What we do know is that during last year's election campaign, David Casa's campaign staff were very, very frustrated that they felt there was a very intentional campaign from within the upper echelons of the Nationalist Party to damage him, to derail his campaign, and to push someone like Frank Tyler instead of him. Now, the fact that there's Jorgen Fenech involved makes it like it's not just about politics, but it's also way more serious. It's also about criminal influence, potential criminal influence into an election.
By someone who is suspected of being the murderer in the Daphne Caruana Galizia assassination. It must be said as well that Pia Portelli has denied, the ex-General Secretary has denied taking money from Fenech to derail David Casa's campaign. It's not quite clear whether he's denying taking the money in the first place, though. One of the points in this investigation is whether the party breached party financing rules, which could have very serious consequences on whether the party is allowed to contest the next election or not. So, in fact, here you have a number of issues. You've got Adrian Delia still being discussed in the context of everything else that's happening with the government. You've got the Nationalist Party still being unable to capitalize at any rate on the scandals that are being seen. In fact, we had a survey last week which showed that the Nationalist Party was only enjoying 15% support of the public. And you have this question mark about whether these rules were breached, party financing was breached, and what relationship did Jorgen Fenech have with the Nationalist Party. Must also be said that David Casa did lose significant number of votes at the MEP election.
But was still re-elected.
So we'll move on to, just before that, talking about elections, Robert Abela did clarify yesterday once again that there's not going to be a snap election and that he's going to see the legislature right through the end. So we'll see whether he does a U-turn on that point or not.
Wouldn't be the
next story, Tim.
Yes. So there was an incident at the Hull Far Open Centre yesterday. A migrant woman had tried to bring a freezer inside the open centre. According to her, there's a lack of cold water, and obviously it's getting hot now, so she decided to take matters into her own hands and literally bring an entire freezer into the open centre. She wasn't allowed to do so. There are policies against, regulating what kind of items migrants can bring into the open centre. At the end of the day, it's almost to be a permanent home, but like a transitionary phase. And something happened. There was some kind of argument. This woman ended up on the floor. She either fainted or passed out, and she was actually taken to hospital. Now, the full details are still a little bit sketchy at this stage, but ours, the agency that takes care of this open centre, did confirm the incident, although it did deny that migrants aren't allowed, that there's no cold water inside the open centre. As of yesterday, the freezer is like just dumped outside the open centre. Now we'll see what what's going to become of this, right?
Yeah, I think this goes to show a bit, gives us a sense of the conditions that migrants are kept in the open centres and the detention centres, where, you know, they're stuck between this temporary existence and permanent existence, and how that needs to be managed moving forward. Moving on to our last story, the Minister of the Environment, Arun Farrugia, yesterday launched a public consultation into new light pollution regulations, and one of those points made is that billboards that are lit up will have to be switched off at 11 p.m.
Yes.
What else was proposed?
So basically there were a number of proposals to kind of clamp down on light pollution. As you rightly said, illuminating billboards won't be allowed after 11 p.m. Except for traffic signs, obviously. Interestingly, you know, the ministry is also proposing a concept called dark sky heritage sites. Now, they already technically exist in some parts of Gozo and Comino, such as Dweira, where basically the site is recognized as, you know, a dark sky heritage site, so great for stargazers to just, you know, sit down and watch the stars without having any flashing lights from businesses nearby. And the plan is for this to such sites to be implemented in Malta as well, specifically in the west and the northern areas of Malta. So yes, it's quite a good move, I think, to protect some parts of the environment from you know, from encroachment by businesses, and yes, it's
maybe noise pollution is next, right? As in we know that seems to be more of a gripe with residents, especially when it comes to construction and things like fireworks and things like noise in general. So that brings us to the end of those stories. Just a couple of things to keep in mind as well. Today, the Attorney General is going to be grilled by the public inquiry into the Daphne Caruana Galizia murder investigation. As we know, the Attorney General is resisting currently calls to set up a joint investigative team by Europol. So, you know, he's one of the last, I think, remaining figures in this whole investigation to be held to account for what has or hasn't been done. And yeah, just want to remind you that we've got this competition going on this week by the Six Pack Revolution. All you need to do is tag a friend in the comments below, and you could win €300 worth of fitness and nutrition program by Six Pack Revolution, including a number of freebies like a reusable water bottle and t-shirt, etc. You would win access to the July wave of the 75-day program by the Six Pack Revolution, which could help you get fit this summer. So anything else from you, Tim?
That's it for now.
I think that's it. We'll wait to see what today brings us, and we'll be back with you again tomorrow. Just one more note. Don't forget to tune in tonight to watch our monthly Kashaturi episode. It's going to be a big one, and you're going to want to follow it. Have a good day. Have a day full of loving. That's it from us at Lovin Daily.